Peace be with you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hammer of Heretics. You can call me John, but today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Pono here, who actually did a excellent debate with Sarah's Ministries for Jesus, now proclaiming the gospel for all. We'll get into that in a little bit, but real quick, I'm going to go ahead and give the floor to you, Pono. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, what's your background, where you're coming from, everything like that.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Pono. I'm 20 years old, and I just started getting into the Christian space, but more seriously, getting into apostolic teaching, for se. So, I'm from Hawaii. I moved up to the United States about 2.5 years ago, and I'm currently living in Kentucky. Um, I kind of started out as like a Protestant evangelical in Hawaii, and I kind of dived into apostolic churches, and kind of got into Catholicism versus Orthodoxy. Now at the moment, I'm kind of going through the Orthodox route a little bit. That doesn't mean that Catholicism is like out of the picture, but just at the moment, just going through that route. Um, but yeah, had that debate with Sarah maybe about 3-4 weeks ago. Didn't go didn't go well. Not for me. I made pretty good points, but it was just hard because she couldn't answer any of my questions, kept interrupting each other, and yeah, that debate didn't go too well, just because it wasn't smooth talking of proper dialogue discussion, I would say. But yeah.
Sweet, man. No, and we'll definitely get a little more into that. We were talking about that backstage too, but so you mentioned you're going kind of the Orthodox route. Are you currently an inquirer? Are you a catechumen right now?
I was an inquirer for about a month, and then I hit up the priest, and then I became a catechumen recently, maybe about 2 weeks ago. So I'm trying to go that route just a little bit, see how it is, and then that doesn't mean being a Catholic is out of the picture. I'm still, keeping that in mind because they are an apostolic church as well. But I am going the Orthodox route just at the moment and seeing how
Awesome.
that goes for me.
One other thing I was going to ask is it Greek? Is it Russian?
It's a Greek Orthodox.
Nice, man. Nice. Big fan of that. We because you mentioned Catholicism, we have a Greek rite as well. That's functionally the same Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom.
Nice.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
And so you said you were basically raised in the evangelical church. Is that
That's what I kind of said, like, is it like 50-50 because interesting fact. So like in Hawaii, the obviously America overtook them illegally, but we actually have the English flag, or the Great Britain flag, the Union Jack. It's on the Hawaiian flag, and that is because Britain actually kind of like married into the Hawaiian royalty family, because
that's right.
yeah. So with that came Puritans, and as you know, Puritans are mixed between Anglican and Congregationalists. So so the Congregationalists came into Hawaii and kind of mixed Congregationalist Christianity with the Hawaiian language. So that's kind of like the original Hawaiian Christianity there. I say 50-50 because the churches don't say they're Congregationalists. They say they're non-denominational, but they treat it as, very much Protestant. So it's like, that's why I'm saying it's 50-50, because they don't claim themselves as such, but you know what I mean? So it's like 50-50, but definitely still in the Protestant evangelical, space. That's how I was pretty much raised as much.
I can relate, man, because I also was raised non-denominational, except the difference was it wasn't Congregationalist. It was actually more quasi-Baptist Pentecostal. Calvary Chapel.
Really?
I'm out here in Cali, so Calvary Chapel's a big thing.
All right.
So that's how I grew up, and then I took the different fork in the road. I went Lutheran, then Catholic. So I'm a recent convert myself. So
yeah,
but it's a trip how they do that, right?
Yeah, and then in Hawaii, we have a lot of a lot of mixed people. So everybody comes from all over the place. So we have a lot of Asians, Hawaiians, even people from America and Europe, even some from like Mexico and South America as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so everybody's mixed there. That's why it's hard to use the race card there because everybody there's every race there. So
Right.
race card doesn't exist in Hawaii. So it's new to me to like get called racist per se. You know what I mean? It's a little bit get called that up here just because I'm not used to that. Everybody loves each other. There's no such thing as racism in Hawaii. So
for sure. And I think you mentioned it during the debate that you're from is it Oahu? Is the island?
Yeah. Yes. Specifically, the North Shore. The towns is Haleiwa. So.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of where all the surf is. All the high surf. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I went to with my family. We went to Maui once.
Oh, nice. Maui's a nice island.
Oh yeah, dude. We were looking for that Maui Wowie, but it's just, this is before I had converted, so I got the out, but
yes,
yeah, we went to Honolulu, all the good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there, man. It's a real blessing. You're not out there anymore, though, right?
Me and my family went this past August. My grandfather unfortunately passed away in May. So we had to go back home for his funeral, and we went there for about 3 weeks, I would say. But that was the last time that we went. I'll probably go back in the future because I still have family over there. But at the moment, I'm chilling up here, especially because I prefer not living there. Not because there's anything wrong with the islands. It's just very much really expensive, like very, very expensive. Average 1 bed, 1 bath house is $1.1 million. So it's like, yeah, it's crazy, And then, it's not like a nice house either. It's like it looks like $100,000 house, but it's like $1 million. So. And, gas is expensive, food is expensive, just everything is expensive. So I'm appreciating Kentucky, not so much because of the stuff here, but just because it's very affordable up here compared to Hawaii, of what I'm used to in Hawaii.
Right. No, and one thing I noticed when I was out there too is that everything we take for granted, local stateside is an import out there. So it comes over like it's like $2 or $3 more.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. And that's how that's why it is expensive because we don't grow anything or produce anything in Hawaii. It's all imported. So you have that extra money you got to spend because of that. So it's like very, very expensive, unfortunately. And it sucks because the actual Hawaiian people who've been there haven't left the islands ever. It's like, they're struggling, very much struggling, Average family has like, I don't know, 10 people in their house.
Wow.
Yeah. If you go to like the real like Polynesian families, the Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan families, they got like 10 people living in one apartment. It's like really sad. Really, really sad. But yeah, but praying for them, and then hopefully in the future, with my career that I'm going with, hopefully I can donate some money to them, hopefully, because they have a lot of charity organizations in Hawaii. So
for sure. What do you do for like in your free time and for your for work?
Yeah, so for my career, I'm actually a day trader.
Oh, dude, sweet.
Yeah, so I do that during the daytime, usually in the morning, maybe about 20-30 minutes a day. And then later on in the day, I'll usually hit the gym probably. And then after that, I'll decide between learning, a new language or studying Christianity. That's pretty much consisting of my day pretty much. And then I'm looking at next year to get into, what's it called? The real estate business. So when I get enough, money in my bank account, probably gonna start investing into real estate. Hopefully in the future, probably next year.
Oh, dope, dude. Yeah, no, I saw your profile picture and I was like, sheesh, homie's yo.
I appreciate it.
Are you natty, man? You can be honest.
Of course I'm natty. Good
deal. I
don't touch that. I don't touch that.
What's your do you go like Golds or something, or what's your gym of choice?
So where I live, the gyms are like very far from where I live. So the closest gym to me, I don't go to the closest gym to me just because they don't have that much equipment, is gonna be I think it's called Anytime Fitness. It's like very small, I
Oh
guess.
yeah, dude.
Yeah. So I don't go to that one. So there's a Crunch that is about 30 minutes away from my home. So that's the gym that I've been going to. And then before that, it was like this very like rugged warehouse gym. They have like a lot of stuff, but it's like 45 minutes to an hour away. So that one is even farther. So I just been sticking with Crunch at the moment.
Cool, man. So what do you do? Like mostly compounds, or you do isolations?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Okay.
I'll usually switch it out, every week. So I usually do, about a compound per body part, and then I'll do isolations after that.
Yeah.
And then the next week I'll switch off, and then I'll start off with an isolation to do like a pre-exhaustion kind of thing, and then do the compound after. So I'll like switch back and forth between the two. But I'm chilling with the schedule that I got right now. I was on the Arnold split for a good minute, but I got real bored of it, so I gave that up and started to switch it up for a little bit. So I started that maybe about 2 months ago. Switched up my schedule, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it at the moment.
Oh, sweet, dude. Yeah, I used to go to the gym quite a bit. Then I started a permanent bulk and just stopped going to the gym. I got to get back into the swing of things, man. I never really lifted that heavy. The closest I got, I almost cracked 4 plates on the deadlift, but then I gave myself a hernia. So,
Oh, nice.
cat backing. You know what I mean? Just, but yeah, I got the mesh to prove it. But yeah, that's sick, man. That's really cool. And you mentioned that you're studying Christianity more. What are you reading right now? What's your where are you at?
So I just finished Luke. I finished Acts a little while ago. I'm kind of like dipping in and out of Revelations because of like the Mariology, so I'm like dipping in and dipping out of it. The book that I'm ready to read though is gonna be the Didache. So yeah, so I ordered that on last week Friday, and it's gonna come in on Wednesday, I believe. So the Didache is gonna be an interesting book for me to read. And then I ordered a couple Orthodox books because my priest gave me a bunch of books that I needed to read for the catechumen classes. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, so I got to read about 9 books because I guess they started the classes in September, so I joined a little bit late, so I got to catch up a little bit. But I ordered about 3 of them, and then I'll try finish them and then move on to the next ones. I forgot the name of those Orthodox books, but yeah. But the Didache for sure, that's the book I'm ready to read. I'm really excited for that one.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. It's not that long of a read, but
yeah, I saw it was like 16 chapters with only like 2,100 words or something like that. It's not that long.
But the content is so meaty, and it really points to this apostolic tradition, right? It doesn't look anything like what you'll see in like modern Protestant churches at all.
Yeah, and then I saw that even though it's not canon, it's affirmed by like a lot of early church fathers between the 1st and the 4th century and stuff. Yep. So I was like, if you have church fathers affirming it, even though it's not canon, it's somewhat, authoritative, even if it's not canon, So I'm really excited to read that, and I'll be like amazed if it's like, has word for word exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and it's like that's what's happening inside the apostolic churches and not in the evangelical churches. So I'll be like,
no, exactly. Another couple good ones for you that aren't that long but are really like substantive would be, I don't know if you've read like Ignatius of Antioch.
Yeah, I read all his seven epistles. Yeah,
good man.
Yes, sir. the ones that Sarah was misquoting.
Oh my gosh!
I think what it was either Ignatius or Irenaeus that she said that supported that the Eucharist was symbolic or something, and I was like,
she was trying to say Irenaeus.
Irenaeus, yeah. And Tertullian, she said that too. Or
yep, she did say Tertullian. Yeah. So for me, she was saying Irenaeus. She just
kept
saying,
I thought she said Ignatius. I was like Ignatius, and then she's like or however she said it.
Irenaeus, yeah.
Irenaeus, like the planet. Uranus.
Oh my
Or
God. But
yeah.
no, she with me, she tried to say that Ignatius might not have existed, like James White did. I
What?
don't. That's
What?
becoming a thing now, man. Yeah, they're trying to say that. Oh well, we don't even know if Ignatius even existed. He might not have even been real. And I was like, what? Where is this coming from? You know?
Well, it's kind of hard to claim that a bishop wasn't real, especially if it was required that you require or that you doctrinate every what's it called, ordination, right? You have to like
Yeah.
record it. So it's like, how are you gonna sit there and say he wasn't real, but you got to record every ordination in history, and you can like look it up of every ordination of the Pope, for example. So it's like, just like that is like, you cannot sit here and say he's not a real person, you know?
Right, but this is the fruit of the Reformation, Pono, is that once you can reform what books are in the Bible, then you can start reforming who even existed. Everything becomes reformable. So they're on quaky ground basically, and so
Yeah.
I had like her trying to challenge me on fragments, right? She's like, oh well, the oldest fragments of or the oldest manuscript of the Against Heresies by Irenaeus is from the 4th century. And I was like, you do realize that the oldest manuscript of the Bible is also from the same period, right? So what's the difference? If it's about age, then or are you just going to make a special case by saying the Bible's infallible?
Yeah, and then you can use that same hypothetical with like all the other apostles' letters too that aren't in the Bible, and then you can argue like, why aren't they in the Bible? And then she would use that same excuse. Oh, because of Jesus, probably. I don't know. I'm just assuming what she would use because what she used with me. Because when I was debating her about the 66 book canon, and I told her about the 85 canon of the apostolic canons, how I have the 73 books. They literally canon the Catholic canon. So I'm like, I'm sitting here. If that's what if that's what they canon is, the 73 books, not the 66 apostolic canon, or whatever the Protestant canon that they use, how are you going to sit here and say that the 66 book canon is the accurate canon? Then she goes and says, because of Jesus, and I'm like, Jesus didn't affirm any scripture. He didn't affirm any scripture, of the New Testament because it wasn't even created. The New Testament didn't even exist for the first 300 years of Christianity. A little bit more than 300 years, but you get the point. So It's like, you can't sit here and say that sola scriptura this and that the Bible is the sole infallible authority, but it didn't even exist for the first 300 years of Christianity. The stuff that existed was tradition in the church that was taught orally. So it's like, that's how people learned what to do. And then I'm assuming because of the Didache, if the stuff in there, I'm assuming since that was canon even before the Bible, maybe they use that, maybe. So
yeah, they used the Didache, the Shepherd of Hermas, Epistle of Barnabas. All these different books were churning. The epistles of Clement as well, Clement of Rome, were churning. So the deeds happen first, the tradition happened first, and ultimately Scripture stems from traditions. Scripture is a part of tradition. So
exactly,
just as well as I do, Pono, that when you remove it from its original context, you take it from the church that lived it, it kind of breaks, right? And
yeah, exactly. And then I saw like all the stuff that Martin Luther either removed or changed up, and the reasons he did it. Yeah, so I was saying he even tried to remove Hebrews, James, and Revelations. I was like, that's crazy, And then he wanted to remove Hebrews because of the cloud of witnesses verse, and then he wanted to remove James because he talked about works and said it contradicted Paul. When in reality, it doesn't. It just talks about the stuff that Paul doesn't even talk about, because Paul talks about when Paul went out, he didn't try to enforce, works onto people because people didn't even believe in God. So how are you supposed to do the works of your faith if you don't even believe in God, period? So I think what James does is not contradict Paul. I think it complements him, if anything. On top of that, Martin Luther called the book of James an epistle of straw. So,
he did.
So it was like, that was another thing. And then Revelations. Why would you even remove that? I don't even have words for that.
You want to know why? You want to know what he said? He said, I don't really understand it, myself, so I don't like it. But if you want to read it, you can read it. That was his justification. If you saw how he dressed down the sacraments too, because if you recall, he so when I was Lutheran, they didn't really like to read Luther. They don't, because they're just like, he wrote stuff, especially because he wrote like the Jews in their lives, right? So he wrote some spicy stuff. But he went through, in one of his letters, he went through a list of all the sacraments. Was like, yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. And I was just like, it was really just perfunctory, right? And he would say stuff like, well, because his only opponents were Roman Catholic or Catholic. So at the time, he was just like, well, if anyone challenges me on why I added alone faith in Romans, you can tell them.
328. Yeah,
any of the people jackasses. So he would just say that stuff, right? So a lot of it was just based on, well, because I said so, or because I feel like it, and
then when I read up on his 95 Theses, before I even read it, I thought it had to do with some morality stuff. It was all theological. And so I'm like, everybody's talking about, oh, the Catholic Church is corrupted, there's all this morally wrong stuff, and I'm like, okay. And then I read the 95 Theses. It doesn't even address any morality stuff. It's all theological. And on top of that, he doesn't even talk about any doctrinates of the catechism either. He's literally talking about, his own opinion. So I'm like, if there was problems in the Catholic Church that were morally wrong, why didn't he address the moral issues? But he didn't. It was all theological issues. And it was all theological issues about the Pope, his authority, what the Pope did, and his preference. It had a lot to do with money, which money isn't even in a doctrine. So, I mean, what are you even talking about? So, my whole life, I'm like thinking, 95 Theses this about morality. And when I actually read it, it's like, he doesn't even make one valid thesis or anathema against the Catholic Church. So I'm like, his 95 Theses isn't even valid. It's all his opinion,
Yeah, and it's funny because while there were abuses going on locally where he was in Germany, it was just local, and that's why he wrote these. And when Pope Leo, the Pope Leo at the time, responded in his bull Exsurges Domine, I think he only challenged 45 out of the 95 Theses, or 45, something like that, 40, 41. Because a lot of them were just like, okay, that makes sense, but some of the other ones were just completely off the rails. I mean, he came up with the idea of faith alone in the way that it's a sole source of justification. While he was on the Thunderbox.
Nobody even believed that for the first 1500 years of Christianity. So I mean, the whole idea with Martin Luther, I mean, I just think people say that there's all this stuff going wrong in the Catholic Church, and then but they don't even read the 95 Theses. So I think it's like more of a, what would you say, spread by word of mouth, but can't even look at the actual subject.
What I mean? Well, the one thing I always hear from Protestants, indulgences, guys. And if they read Luther, he actually wasn't against indulgences themselves. He was against paid indulgences, which was the abuse. And it's funny because although he wrote on the Jews and their lies, he based his idea of the canon on the Masoretic text, which was the modern or contemporary Jewish canon. So it's like, well, hey, it's good enough for the Jews, good enough for us. Sarah brought that up in our debate. She actually brought this up during our debate because in Romans where it says, hey, the Jews were trusted with the oracles of God, right?
Does she believe that like the Jews in Israel today are still like his?
She does, man. Yeah, ours got a little spicier than yours, just because I did tell her that, hey, the church is the Israel of God. That we are the Jews. We are the spiritual Jews. Because that's what it says. It's not all from Israel are of Israel, and it's not a matter of circumcision or non-circumcision. It's the circumcision of the heart, right? Which is baptism. Yes. And she totally lost it when I was like, we're the Jews now. She's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I told her that in that passage in Romans, epithusian, where it says had the oracles, does not imply a continuation of them having the oracles as the Jewish people based on the old covenant, because the covenant didn't get abolished; it got fulfilled in the
yes. So, and that's something that I got irritated about when the I don't even know his name, but the boy in the back, when he was talking and he brought up Jesus being the covenant that wasn't created, and I'm like, Okay, that's not what that wasn't even the subject. The subject was about, you know what I mean? I think the subject that we were talking about was the thief on the cross, yeah, or
Yes.
something like that. And then how when he died, I said that he died under the old covenant. So she was using him as why he didn't need to get baptized and he went to heaven. And I'm like, he died under the old covenant. I think he jumped in, quoted a verse from Revelation and is talking about that Jesus has always been the new covenant. And I'm like, okay, but that's not the question, you know? So then I asked her, I think it was, when was the new covenant, you know, put into place, or like not created, but like put into action? Was it when Jesus was born, or when he died and was resurrected and went to heaven? And she couldn't even answer me. And because the truth is, it's when he was resurrected. That's why.
Yes.
The new covenant wasn't in action for the whole entirety. Even when Jesus was alive, he was still under the old covenant because he didn't desmatize matter yet by being resurrected.
Yes.
So it's like everybody was still under the old covenant. Every Jew who was, you know, true of God, right, true believer, didn't even go to heaven. They went to the bosom of Abraham. So it was like,
Yep.
nobody even went to heaven. The reason he told him that is because when Jesus died, he was gonna go and take everybody up with him that was in the bosom. So
Yes.
if everybody's under the old covenant, how can he be the new covenant while the old covenant is still active? It doesn't make sense. On top of that, the old covenant, it didn't got done away with, it got fulfilled. So that's
Yes.
another thing.
Yes.
You know, she was trying to make it like I was making a distinction between the two. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You're not removing the old covenant. You're fulfilling the old covenant. So that was like the point that I was trying to make. But she wouldn't, you know, she wouldn't answer my question about when the new covenant was enacted. So
she didn't even think that baptism was the mode in which you join the new covenant.
yes, exactly. She didn't.
Because I asked her, like, what is the circumcision without hands? And she was just like, oh, well, no, it's just when you believe. It's when you believe. And it's like, well, okay, but
It's in the definition. It's literally in the definition in Koine Greek. You know, the word baptizo literally means immerse or dip. And then I saw the one of the chapters in the Didache online. I didn't see it in the book, but I saw online that if you can't get immersed, like you don't have a live body of water, then you can get sprinkled. So I'm like, in there, it even says that. So either way, baptism is with water. Either way, you know, it's not a you believe and you're baptized. I think that's like a whole misconception that people have spread in the evangelical world. Also the idea that, you know, you can go to heaven without being baptized is like, you know, where are you getting that from? You know, literally, where are you getting that from? Now, do I believe, and I'm sure it's possible that God predestines people who aren't baptized to go to heaven? Sure. But is that the normative means? Definitely not. That's not the normative means, you know? And by predestining specific people, it's not that God is going around picking hundreds and thousands of people that are not baptized. He specifically chooses people, not, you know, the normative means of him going to masses that aren't baptized and taking them to heaven. You know, there's nowhere in the Bible that you have people in the New Testament that have not been baptized after Jesus had died and went to heaven. There's nowhere in the New Testament. And on top of that, there's nowhere in the New Testament that someone got spiritually only baptized either. Because I think it was Thaddeus, right, that got spirit baptized, right? And then or was it Cornelius? Yes. And then Peter, and then Peter came along and told him to get water baptized. So it's like, you know, even that, you know, there's nobody that got spirit only baptized, because you need both. You need water and spirit. So it's like, no, where are you getting this idea that you can go to heaven without baptism of water, or, you know, the whole process of baptism, or that baptism is by believing in Jesus Christ? You know, that's not baptism. So
yeah, and we it's funny because you brought up the same thing I had brought up, where it's like, hey, there's a distinction between the baptism of John, which you see in Acts 19, and baptism of Christ, which is the Holy Spirit, right?
Yes.
And that's why and I even brought this up when we were talking with her. When I was talking with her, I was like, look, in order to understand the sacraments, you need to understand who Christ is, because in the hypostatic union. He's fully God and fully man. Much like the sacraments are a physical sign of underlying grace, that's being transmitted to you. You can't separate the spirit from the water. That's why in John 3 it says water and spirit. When she tried to bring it up, I just totally skirted past it because I was like, you're not picking up the distinction because
because when I brought up John 3:5, then she was talking about that water means from the womb.
Yeah,
that's not even the context. And
no,
I'm
it's
like,
not. And
so
nowhere in the Bible does it mention that birth by a woman is birth by water. And why would you say that to someone who's already born? You're talking to someone who was already born of a woman, so obviously you need to be born of a woman to be reborn.
Yeah, that's pretty much obvious.
Yeah,
and then I wanted to go into the theological part, but because we agreed on Bible only, it was like, it's kind of like my interpretation versus your interpretation, but my interpretation is better because obviously it's backed up by church fathers and literally the ecumenical councils, and hers is backed up by nobody. So I mean, it's like hard to debate on Bible only because it's like you affirm to nobody except yourself and your own interpretation, and that's like that. I think that's also why it was hard to not have a mediator as well, because it's like my interpretation versus your interpretation. So it was very hard. But definitely with the baptism thing, she didn't answer any of my questions, like literally any. Like, you go watch that debate, she didn't answer nothing. And if she did circular reasoning about what I say is right because Jesus said so, because the Bible's the word of God. And then I called her out about it, and I told her, you're doing what Muslims do. You're literally saying what Muslims do, which is, they usually be like, the Quran is true because Muhammad said so, or the Quran is true because it's the word of God, and what Muhammad said is true because he's the prophet of God, or the same circular reasoning. And then she called me out on doing Muslim tactics of saying choose A or B, or a yes or no question. I'm like, well, I mean, I will say this about Muslims. They do ask direct questions, which is better than circular reasoning, but they also do circular reasoning. So, for you to say, oh, you're doing what Muslims are doing of asking a question, that's not a valid critique. For what I said, what Muslims are doing, because you're giving an answer of circular reasoning, that's a valid critique because you are doing circular reasoning, and that's intellectually dishonesty. You cannot sit here and say the Bible is the word of God, and what I'm saying is because Jesus said so. You can't quote me a verse of what Jesus said, but it's because of what Jesus said so. So it's like circular reasoning. I get, I just got very, very over it, and she never answered any of my questions when it came to baptism at all. But yeah.
And because I know we talked about it backstage, but maybe walk through like, hey, what the planned agreement was with the debate, like, because you mentioned that there were a few topics you guys were going to address.
Yeah, so I mean, when the debate started, I want to say for the first 30 to 45 minutes, we didn't even get to start on the topics, because we were jumping all over the place. The debate was supposed to consist of 5 topics. We were supposed to start off with baptism, the Eucharist, church authority, salvation, and then canon of the Bible. We didn't even get to talk about, all of them. We were supposed to start off with baptism. We kind of jumped into like canon of the Bible a little bit, but then she shifted off topic and started talking about Old Covenant versus New Covenant, which isn't even a topic, And then she started shifting off into church fathers, quoting them like misleadingly, and then she pronounced Irenaeus's name wrong, So it's like, and that's why I asked, are you talking about like Ignatius? Because I thought she was talking about Ignatius, and I'm like, and then she was like, no, Uranus or something, whatever, however she pronounced it. So I was like confused. I was like, oh, okay, Irenaeus. Then she started talking about that he affirmed to symbolic Eucharistic, for communion. And I'm like, he didn't even say that. So it's like misquoting whatever he said, and using it in the wrong context,
Right.
And, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. And then what we agreed on was that the debate was supposed to be using the Bible alone. And I agreed to that because it's like, whatever you say, you can't really defend what you say without quoting all this other Bible verses that's not even related to it. So if I'm gonna use Bible verses, I'm totally cool with that. Number one, I study like a lot. I've only been doing this like 3-4 months, but I have studied a lot, so I felt pretty confident in pretty much what I was going with, which is pretty much what all the apostolic churches teach. You know, that the Eucharist is, that is His body and blood.
Yeah.
Baptism does save you. Salvation isn't by faith alone. Works are needed. And that the apostolic canon is really the true canon. It's not no 66 book canon, So, and just I was pretty confident in that. Whatever we talked about, I could use Bible verses to back it up, and I did. You watched the debate, and when we just went to the baptism, I literally quoted like 10 Bible verses right after another, and all of them are supporting water baptism. And it's like she didn't even respond to any of them. None of them she responded to. She didn't answer any of my questions. And then she went on this whole 5 to 10 minute rant about faith alone and Jesus this, Jesus that. And I'm like, okay, you're making like, I don't believe that Jesus grants us salvation, when that's not even true. What we're getting at is baptism. So it's like she shifts the topic over. That's not even the topic, But yeah, it was really horrid. That debate was very, very bad. Not in terms of my part. I know I did good. I gave a lot of verses. I gave a lot of explanations, a lot of hypotheticals as well. She didn't answer none of them. It was harder for me because she kept on talking over me. I didn't even get to finish my point. And when I tried to finish my point while she was talking over me, she would say that I'm interrupting her. So it's and then it's even more horrid. It's even more horrid because of the fact that you have people in her comments saying I'm being rude. And I'm like, there's a difference between being rude and just being like very like nonchalant, which is what I was being. And that's how I'm like talking to her, very nonchalant. And it's like, if I was being rude, I would have started calling her all kinds of names and stuff, or started yelling and stuff. But all I did was be very nonchalant. I started getting irritated when you had her soy boy of a son popping in. You know what I mean? When he's popping in, 2 to 3 times trying to talk to me, I had to check him like twice. So I was like, respectfully, bro, you need to like, I'm debating Sarah, not you. So respectfully, shut your trap. You know what I mean? So it's like he deadass kept like jumping in. And he was like quoting verses that have nothing to do with the topic. So I'm like, why am I even entertaining this? So, I'm like, I need to check him. So I did. And, if you watch the debate, you can see how, pissed off he gets. He starts getting really upset. So
the part that was the worst was that he was like yelling across the room sometimes. He'd be like,
I know.
You barely hear him. I was like,
I know.
Dude, see your way out, bro. Like, I don't know. Like,
I know.
You set up the debate with her, not Sarah.
I know, exactly. And then it was hilarious because I don't know. I kept on sighing. I was like, because she kept on rambling and ranting.
She's like, you're interrupting me. I remember.
Yeah, and I'm like,
you sighed, and she's like, don't interrupt. Don't.
I know. I just sighed, and I sighed because it's like I ask a question and then you give a response that's not even related to the question. Like, just stay on topic, and you can't even do that. And it sucks because every time that I would, interrupt her to stay on topic, and that's the only times I would interrupt her, she would threaten to kick me off. So it was like, if I didn't be quiet, then she would kick me off. And eventually she did kick me off, when we started getting onto the Eucharist. But yeah, and then even the Eucharist topic, I got one verse off, literally one verse, and but I couldn't even list off any of the other verses as well. But yeah, that debate was very horrid.
It was hectic, man. Yeah.
I mean, what part stuck out to you like the most about it?
So when you mentioned when she brought up the church fathers, it's like, and I told her this when we talked, and I think a lot of Protestants don't, not to generalize, excuse me, but a lot of Protestants do think that we put the fathers at a commensurate level to Scripture. But the reality is that even the saints in their personal theology can err. So, I know that Irenaeus didn't hold to a symbolic Eucharist, but even if he did, that doesn't matter, because in the light of what the church teaches infallibly in the councils, the ecumenical synods, the saints assent to that. They assent their authority, or not their authority, but their opinions to that. Like Jerome with the canon, because a lot of Protestants will point to Jerome as like, oh, well, see, that's our canon. But if you read what Jerome later said, he conceded to the church authority with the synods that they were having, deciding the apostolic canon, which is based on the Septuagint, not on the
exactly.
Masoretic text.
Yeah, and then if me and her, if she actually agreed on not just having a Bible alone debate, I would have loved that, because number one, you can say the Bible has all the answers for you, but it really doesn't. Number one, there's no theological sense that is in the Bible of what the Trinity is. And this is why Muslims catch a lot of evangelical or Protestants in debates, is because they say, where's the Trinity in the Bible? And they're quoting stuff from the Bible. That's not where you get the word Trinity from. So it's like, that doesn't mean the Trinity isn't in the Bible. But if you're going to sit here and use stuff that's in the Bible of describing what the Trinity is, when the canon of what Trinity is, hypostasis, the hypostatic union, and all of this was in the ecumenical councils, but you don't believe in the ecumenical councils, then it's like you're kind of ruining yourself from the start of explaining your faith. But if me and her got to talk about not just the Bible, including church fathers, including the ecumenical councils, and then if she wanted to go into the catechism and even like later councils of the Catholic Church, Vatican I and II, Florence, Council of Trent, I would love to go back and do that with her. But I know for a fact, if she did, she wouldn't know what she's talking about, because even from when she was talking about Irenaeus, number one, you can't even pronounce his name right. Number two, you misquoted what he said. So it's like, and it's funny because she was saying that she studied the church fathers. I'm like, no, you didn't. It's clear you didn't. And it's funny. I think you said when backstage, you saying that she quoted Tertullian too, as well. I think you said that. That's funny too, because even later in his life, didn't he turn out to be like heretical a little bit?
He was a Montanist, so he was basically like a proto Pentecostal, essentially.
So for me personally, I don't know if everybody does this, or between Orthodox and Catholic, Assyrian Church of the East, Oriental, I don't know. But for me personally, if someone is a church father or an early figure in the church, but you turn out to be heretical later on, I don't really want to use you as a source. That's just me personally. I'm not saying what they said early on is not valid. It definitely is. It's just because of consistency reasons for myself. What they say early on, does that not matter? No, that does matter. But for me, I just want the consistency. You know what I mean?
Right.
Will I affirm to the things they said? Definitely. But will I affirm to them and their teachings as like a you compare them to like Ignatius, for example? I'm not gonna do that as well. But in terms of consistency, I'll affirm to their teachings that are correct. But in terms of them being like an actual apostolic father, I'm not gonna do that. Just in terms of like consistency,
Right, because there's a reason that there's no saint in front of their name, right? But
yeah, exactly. So like, for example, like Origen, for example, he has like Origen. So Origen, he's very, very intellectually smart. Very, very. He accomplished a lot of stuff, but a lot of his theological, stuff that he preached about. I kind of believe that. The fact that you can believe that Satan can have, redemption, salvation.
Oh yeah, universalism, ransom theory to Satan, and then also, homie took being a eunuch for Christ literally and castrated himself. So
I kind of
went a little off.
Yeah, so like Origen, he did a lot of stuff. I congratulate him, all of his accomplishments, especially because he's one of the first people that brought up the Trinity as well. But
him and Tertullian, funny enough,
the heretical brothers. Yes. But that doesn't mean that he's a reliable, consistent source. But is his teachings valid? yeah, there is teachings of his that is valid. Same with
Yeah.
Tertullian. But in terms of them being like an early church father or like a saint that I would rely on, I wouldn't do that just because of the
Right.
consistency, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about the debate as well was and I had the same beat happen to me when we came to the Eucharist was
Yeah.
she used that argument from Leviticus about oh yeah, you should not drink animal blood, right? Like you cannot drink the
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah.
Yet, and she was trying to say that that was a typological fulfillment in what Christ was saying in John 6, that unless you
Hmm.
eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. But she got that completely confused with you
Hmm.
and with me. So,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, well, Christ isn't a creature. Christ
Yes.
isn't an animal. This is
Yeah.
talking about animal blood in the context.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
and that's how we receive the divine life. That's how we partake of the divine nature in theosis, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's how he dwells in us and we in him,
Yeah.
and it went right over her head, dude.
And then it's hard because evangelicals, I think Anglicans, they believe in theosis, right? Or I think like high church
So
Anglicans.
that's a good question. Now I'm pretty ignorant of that. I know that for Catholics, for instance, we do believe in it. We call it it's either theosis or divinization. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah, yeah. I'm just assuming that high church Anglicans might do that just because they are more similar to Catholicism than a lot of the other mainline Protestants, right? So I'm
yeah.
just like assuming that.
I know as a Lutheran, we believed in the communion of saints. Like I'm sure you've heard of that. Right?
Yes,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey, we
hmm,
partake of the Eucharist outside of time as an amnesis, so a
yeah,
special remembrance like
yeah,
Passover,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we're sharing this with all communicants, past, present, and future.
Hmm. Yeah, and then another thing about the debate that was funny, quoting John 6, but like John
Yeah.
6 isn't even talking about the Last Supper. He's literally in
No.
the synagogue. So
No.
that's
Yeah.
another thing. When he's preaching, he's not talking about the Last Supper. That's why in Luke and First Corinthians, Paul and Luke are saying in remembrance of me because it's the Last Supper. That's why
Yeah.
he's saying that. It's not because in remembrance of me as it's a memorial. He's saying in remembrance of me because this is the last time I'm going to be doing this with you on earth. But he literally also says to do it often, right?
Yeah.
So
As
that,
often as you meet.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
right.
that literally indicates that he's going to be with them from
Right.
then until they meet again in heaven. And that's going to be for them and everybody after them. As in, do this often until we meet again in heaven. So it's like when Jesus was preaching about it in the synagogue, it wasn't the Last Supper. And I think she confuses the two between in Luke and in John as well, because also in John 6, he literally uses the word eat and switches it to chew or gnaw.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Trogon.
In Koine Greek. So
Yeah.
it's like, how are you going to sit here, say, chew or gnaw on my flesh is symbolic? There's no way of sitting here saying, oh, yeah, if you gnaw on his flesh, it's actually just a symbol to gnaw on it. Like what are you talking about?
Right.
Where in the context of gnawing is it a symbol? And it's funny because he literally uses the word eat before that, and then he switches to the word gnaw. So he's clearly talking about something more than just eating flesh, right? Or eating bread. If you're gonna gnaw on it, and if you think about the word gnaw versus the word eat, if you think about the word eat, you're literally like chewing for a few seconds and swallow. You know what I mean? When you're gnawing, you think about like something like gum.
Yeah. Like
You're like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
phone,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you're literally like grinding at whatever it is you're putting in your mouth. So it's like literally like grinding and satiating whatever you're putting in your mouth. And if it's literally Jesus that you're putting in your mouth and you're literally drinking his blood, then it's like there's more to it than just eating. And gnaw is a perfect example word of what that means. So there's no way of putting it either way of making it symbolic, whether it's eat or gnaw. But since you have the word gnaw in Koine Greek, there's no way of making that symbolic. No way.
Right.
No way of making it symbolic. And he literally says, if you don't eat it, you have no life in you. So, how are you going to make that symbolic as well?
Right. And that's why, like, when she brought that up, the same thing with me, like, because she has the same script, right? And, the hard thing is that she, as a street preacher, she has a script. She
Yeah.
It depends on keywords being brought up, and then that kind of brings her back. I called her out on that; she didn't like it, but so she was like, "Oh, these words are spirit because that's what it says in
Yeah.
John, and the flesh will not avail." But she doesn't realize that that's not talking about we're not talking about eating Christ in a physical chemical change, and like it doesn't become
Yes.
human flesh, like bloody flesh in the hand or in the chalice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so
And then
it's a
the
spiritual reality.
funny
And that's what, yeah.
the funny thing that like a lot of them say too is like the microscope thing. Yeah, like if you put the bread under a like under a microscope, you're not going to see the molecules changing. And I'm like, you're not talking about that at all when we're talking about the Eucharist, for example, right?
No,
We're not talking about the chemical bonding of it changing.
it's not a
That's not what we're
biological
talking about.
change. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. So, and then on top of that as well, just adding to that topic, it was funny because she was asking me what my like view on the Eucharist is, and I was like trying to describe it to her by listing off each view of each church. So I went
yeah.
from transubstantiation to consubstantiation, and then
Yeah.
as the Orthodox believe in transubstantiation, but as it's mystical. So that's why I was trying to like kind of tell her the example of what I believe in. As I do believe it's the body and blood of Christ, but in the Orthodox Church, Orthodox believe that it's his body and blood. We don't know how it changes into it, but it does. It's mystical and it's divine. So we're not going to explain how it gets there. And then she's like, so do you believe that it's his body or not? And I'm like, I'm explaining the different views. Like, are you that intellectually stupid to not like listen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
I remember, and you were like, "Hey, look, you were very particular. You were very specific
Yeah,
with her, and
yeah.
it just went right over her head because you're like, look, we don't believe in the particulates of like for instance in transubstantiation where in the Catholic Church we're like, hey, each particle right needs to be treated with care, but it's because it's not as so it's not scholastically precise in the Eastern tradition. Like it's not at this particular moment it becomes this. It's throughout the entire liturgy, right? And then at the end, even when the gifts are being processed around the church. So I totally get where you were coming from. I was like, oh yeah, you're trying to be clear with her, but she just doesn't get it. So,
yeah. So I'm like literally bringing up each viewpoint. I bring up, some people believe it's symbolic. Some people believe in consubstantiation, that Jesus is with, in, and under the bread, right?
Lutherans,
yeah. And then you have some that believe in transubstantiation, which is that it's his physical body and blood. Then I was trying to explain the Orthodox view that it is transubstantiation, but you have a different explanation of how it is the body and blood. And then she just like totally blew past whatever I was saying. I was like, okay, do you believe that it's his body and blood or not then? And I'm like, okay, just never mind, But,
so for me, one thing that she did, because we talked about the Last Supper, kind of like you did, and she was like, I told her that, hey, he broke his body with his own hands, right? At that moment, that did become, in a substantial sense, again, because transubstantiation is body, blood, soul, and divinity. So, and she kept asking me, so you think that Jesus turned himself into bread? And I was like, no, he did. That is the first Eucharist. That was the very first Thanksgiving. And he did do that. Why? And she like scoffed, and I was like, yeah, you laugh because you're making fun of Christ. You think it's funny, but it's because you're looking at this with worldly wisdom. This is the wisdom of God. That's why only faith suffices with this. That's the only sola fide I can really get behind and Thomas Aquinas said that regarding the Eucharist, that only faith will suffice to understand it, right? Because it is ultimately, even when we try to break it down with Aristotelian metaphysics, it is still a mystery, a miracle brought about by the Holy Spirit.
And speaking of like Aristotle, for example, I think she doesn't read context of the church fathers in that like way that they written it, right, as well. She reads it in like modern language, and I'm like, that's why if we got into like the argument of church fathers, I would have been like, you're reading the context wrong, because they wrote in a different way. It was literally how Aristotle wrote. So it's like, that's another thing,
Okay. Um, one thing I was gonna also ask you about was kind of like, was there anything that you wanted to cover, that like any points that you look back and you're like, oh man, I wish I'd brought that up, you know, because I don't know, I don't know if you're like me, but I have like sometimes the big like, oh man, I should have said
Yeah,
that,
for
or should
sure.
have the other on that.
Maybe one thing, I could have not gotten irritated by I'm just gonna say that's her son, probably the boy.
Yeah, that's what I thought
That's
too,
the
yeah.
one thing. I did get pretty irritated because it's like, why are you jumping in? But I could have like chilled out a bit, like not gotten so irritated with him. I'm sure anybody would have, but in terms of like being cool headed, I could have, not gotten irritated with her son, I would say. Um, Another thing, if I could have the ability to, I would have like cut her off and had her stay on topic. Even though I tried to,
Yeah.
it was hard because she would just threaten to kick me off. So if I could do that, definitely that. Um, and as well, if I could, I would not have the debate of Bible alone, because it's not just the Bible that is gonna solve the issues or whatever theological basis that she's going off with. So
Right.
if I could have the debate of the Bible, early church fathers, basically all saints throughout the ecumenical councils, all the way to even past the schism, I would even say, you know, and then also probably certain theologians as well, like Thomas Aquinas. I would definitely use him for sure. Um, and then definitely the ecumenical councils. Ecumenical councils would be the biggest one, because it's like, how are you gonna argue against, for example, like Nicaea 1? How are you gonna argue against 381 bishops that came into the same synod and debated each other and came to the same conclusion of theologies? Where are you going to get that? You put 10 different denominations of Protestant pastors in the same room, they're not going to agree on the same thing. So how are you going to say that the ecumenical councils aren't valid, but what you're believing is valid? So it's like, if I could definitely have a debate, or like redo that debate, I would definitely have it not Bible alone. But I agreed to do Bible alone because I was really confident, and even if it was just Bible alone, and I did very, very good for myself, I would say.
You did. You protected the faith, dude.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to get you. I was like, I gotta find this guy. I gotta like,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
and it's
face that with
crazy
you.
because she talks about that, how long she's been doing this, and I'm like, how am I gonna be doing this? At the time of the debate, I've only been actually like dedicated and studying for like 2 months. 2 months I've been doing this. How am I schooling you on this right now? So it's like, just her whole like demeanor was super nice on WhatsApp and stuff. It was like,
Yeah.
WhatsApp, she was super nice, super like welcoming and all this. Once we get on the debate, it's like super ingenuine, very, very intellectually dishonest and ignorant.
Yep.
And it's not ignorance out of because you don't know. It's ignorance out of choice, which is why I said she's intellectually dishonest, because you're
Right.
choosing to be ignorant. A lot of circular reasoning as well. So the debate was very hard in terms of having her be intellectually honest. I also feel bad because not to expose her anything, but she is on like an evangelist mission right now in Europe. She's in Georgia, went from England to Georgia and all that. So I feel bad for the people that have to interact with her. You know what I mean? I mean,
but no, you're right. You're
yeah, and
you're
I'll say
right.
it because, number one, I'm not an influencer, so I don't really care what people say about me. So that's why a lot of these influencers will sit here and try to be all positive, but for me, I'm not an influencer, so I don't care. So
Right.
I'll be very blunt about what I say, how I feel, and my theological thoughts on stuff. So if you're going around, and this brings up like the beginning of the debate, I gave her a hypothetical, if you remember, about if you have a Muslim person in front of you, what gives you the authority to condemn them to hell, right? And when I asked her that, she said, Jesus gives me authority. I'm like, no, Jesus is not you. I'm talking about you. And she's like talking
Yeah.
about that Jesus is going to condemn all these people. And I'm like, okay, even if Jesus condemns these people, and he is, which I totally agree with, what gives you the right to condemn them? What gives you, a person, not the power of the Holy Spirit, not Jesus talking through you, what gives you as a person the right to condemn them? And she keeps on going with this Jesus. So then I give her the hypothetical as, if there's a Muslim person in front of you, and you have two hypotheticals. I think the hypothetical I gave was, the first hypothetical was, you go up to them and say, try to bring them closer to Christianity and say, are you interested in learning about Christianity, the Bible, Jesus, and all that? Because I don't want you to end up in a other place, so called hell, right? Then the second hypothetical that I gave was, you go up to a Muslim person and you say, you're a Muslim and you're condemned to hell. Which one are you going to choose? She didn't answer that. She couldn't even answer that hypothetical. And then that's when she said, oh, you're doing what Muslims are doing and giving me a A or B situation or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not even giving you an A or B situation. The answer is pretty obvious. Do the first one. And that's how evangelists should be. You shouldn't be going up to people and condemning people to hell. That means you're putting yourself at the same level as God, because you're saying you have the same authority as he does to condemn people to hell. And if you look at both the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, there's no doctrine of condemnation to hell. Literally none. So it's like, if they don't have it, and it's funny because she says that the Catholic Church is like, judges everybody, right? And condemns people and all this nonsense. How are you going to say that, but you're doing the exact same thing? That's so hypocritical. So hypocritical. And I would make the claim even that, Catholics are more Christian than any Protestant. And I'll make that claim. And I'll defend that. And I'll make that claim. And my claim and backup for that is like, number one, Protestants go off only the Bible. Number two, Catholics go off of the Bible and tradition. So if you're just adding in what has been passed down orally along with scripturally, you're doing more in terms of your faith compared to Protestants and evangelicals. Now, does that mean all Catholics are like that? No. Does that mean all Protestants are like that? No. But in terms of doctrinal stuff, Catholics do have more than evangelicals and Protestants, especially because of the fact that you're removing everything and you're focusing only on the Bible. So yeah, all the stuff she said in terms of that, it was horrid, because I was surprised that she even said yes to condemning people to hell. So
yeah, it's and one thing I told her during ours as well is that I don't believe in the Christ of Sarah's Ministries, right? And I told her, I was like, I believe in the Christ of the Bible. You have a different Christ, and she's like, no, I don't. No. I was like, well, it's your ministry, right? Oh no, so that's why I needled her on that during our debate. I don't know if that caused her to change her name, but I was like, it's kind of a grift. You're doing this. You're taking people's money to go and harass people, get kicked out of the Vatican, go up to poor Father Seraphim Hamilton just sitting there like not.
I know. And that's I don't know if you saw the comments on that. I called her out in the comments on that YouTube video. That's where I saw that. Yeah, and then you see my comment versus her comment. My comment has how many likes on it. Hers has you'll see the difference on it. It's funny because she goes up to Father Seraphim and then she's literally saying, "Can I talk to you?" Like ask you a question kind of thing. And then it turns into, "Oh, I'm ridiculing you. I'm literally like harassing you." So it's like it goes from I want to ask you a question kind of thing to I'm gonna literally like poke my finger at you and like literally condemn you to hell,
which she did. Which she did.
Exactly. And you see his stuff, he's very nice. So it's like I see his stuff on Instagram all the time. He doesn't condemn anybody to hell. All he literally does is preach the word and literally how to improve yourself by following Christ's footsteps, and a lot about theosis. So it's like he's very, very genuine. He's a very good priest. And when I saw that, I was like, that literally like made me upset on the inside. And I didn't even go to an Orthodox church yet, So when I saw that, it didn't push me away from Orthodoxy. It literally brought me closer to apostolic tradition. You know what I mean? So it's funny. You want to go and make these videos of condemning people to make people closer to Jesus and away from Catholic churches and Orthodox churches. But in reality, all you're really doing is pushing people closer to it. That's all you're doing. And then you have the other side of the pole. You're also pushing people away from Christ, because then you're making like it's judgmental. And
Right.
that's not what being Christian is about. Nobody has the right to judge. And then I was making exactly.
Yeah.
And I was making the distinction to her. There's a difference between judging and defending your faith, and that's when I made the distinction with the hypothetical with talking to like a Muslim person. So,
right.
Yeah.
But we're getting close to time. I was going to ask you, was there anything you wanted to add or say to the viewers? Do you want to look at some comments real quick? Because we got some that were pretty interesting. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead and pop them in chat real quick. But
for sure. For sure. Which one do you want to go over?
So we could look at some of the earlier ones. This one's by Jitten. Yep. So he calls it right out. So I know Jitten. He's actually in the server I invited you in. He's Protestant. So again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So look, the pure symbolic interpretation of the Eucharist is an accretion by Zwingli. Yes.
Yeah.
Find corroboration or consensus. Another spicy one by Jitten here. Faith alone mentioned the Bible once in James 2:23 as opposed to a strict it's in the negative.
Yeah.
It's in the negative.
Yes.
Here's one by Acolyte Insight, one of my buddies. She's a frustrated lady. Yo. Oh, here's a good one. This dude, Jitten, I don't know if you got to see this guy flex. I don't know if you want to square up with him, man. Bono, remember, dude, you always have the Plato option, the Platonic option. So if you start losing a theological debate, dude, just get up and start flexing, just like
yeah.
over someone, you know what I mean? And,
yeah. I don't know about Sarah's son. I don't know about him. Yeah, that soy boy needs to hit the gym a little bit, just a little bit more.
Oh, here's a good one too. Most recent one, dude. We don't claim Sarah Tolenberg. Okay, my bad. We won't. But yeah, if there's no other questions or anything, Pono, you got any closing words?
No, that should do it. I mean, I appreciate you hitting me up for this. Definitely, because I finished that debate by getting kicked off, and I was like, it wasn't that I didn't want to show anybody. It was just like it went bad because it's like I didn't even get to talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like there's no point in like, being proud of that debate, because it's like that debate was just horrid, very horrid. Because it's like, how are you gonna set up a debate? You're not gonna let me talk, not even gonna let me finish my point, and then when you respond, it's like she doesn't even answer my question. She goes on a 5-minute rant about faith alone, and it's like, it's totally like just horrid. That's literally the word I would describe that debate as. And it was really bad too, because she has a bunch of like dick riders in her comments, supporting her. It's dead ass. It's very horrid, because it's like, if you go on that live, you go in the comments, it's like really bad. You got people supporting her, be like, yeah, Sarah, yeah, get this guy, or whatever, speaking the truth, preaching the word of Jesus. And I'm like,
I remember.
What are you talking about? And then you got
someone said I was demon possessed because I burped during our I was drinking a Red Bull, and I was trying to mute my mic. I couldn't do it in time, and they're like, "Wow, he burped. That's very disrespectful. Man must be demon possessed." Like, and I was like,
yeah. I wonder if Sarah is demon possessed. I wonder.
Because when he blessed her, don't do that. And
yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to mention. So yeah, I wonder if she is, because I've seen videos of like the Eucharistic miracles, and the people who are possessed is like genuinely scared of the Eucharist, and it's like,
Well, when I tried to, I invoked the Trinity during our debate. I said, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. She's like, don't do that. Stop it. And I was like, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And she kicked me off because I said, hey, I'll ask the saints to pray for you. And I was like,
Yeah.
I asked Mary to pray for her, and then she booted me. So we'll pray for her for sure. I continue to pray for her.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, dude, thank you again for your time. Thanks for
Yeah,
taking the opportunity.
Of course.
But God bless you, man. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for everybody for watching. If you like, please go ahead and like, subscribe, go spread this around. And then Pono, if you want people to check out your channel too, I put the link there in the title, so they can go check out how to do some cool trades and stuff. I was actually watching some of your stuff, pretty rad.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But thank you so much, everybody. God bless you. Take care.